Hello guys, this is Restore Refurb Works, and today you can see that we are working on this Logitech MX Performance mouse that I got online. So it's gonna be a tear down and a refurb. From here you can see that the case, the rubbery parts have been all disintegrated and being peeled off by the previous owner. This is considered an ergonomic mouse and with multiple convenience buttons you can use, like a zoom, like a Windows button, left right subsidiary click. Removing the AA battery and the mouse skids, these are quite easy. There are little tabs to indicate where to remove from. They're all hidden in the 3-piece skids. Then from there, quite straightforward. The Phillips head screw, 4 pieces to remove. And as I'm going through, right, this is the first time I'm taking apart this. Prior to this, I have seen short clips of video on how to remove it, and you're going with me how the obstacles that I encounter to do a tear down. And along the way, I'll put some tags or some tips how to ease your tear down as well. So there is the wire connecting to the top part, still connected. Okay, it's good that you have some fingernails or a sturdy tweezer that you can remove this connector. Quite straightforward. First glance at the motherboard, right, you'll be able to see there's a left and right click, the scroll wheel, there's some copper coil inside, and a ribbon cable that connects. I guess it's the sensor. Yeah. So let's see which is the screw that is most prominent and accessible to start with this teardown. First of all, is a battery compartment. There's 3 screws over here. It's a slightly different compared to the 4 that we first removed. So it's good to compartmentalize your screws on the tray, so it's easier when you work your way backwards assembling the item. Yeah. So the battery leads are soldered directly onto the board, so I strongly suggest not to desolder it, because factories soldering are much better than ours. Okay, after this, a familiar sight, a few more screws on the main board. Let's remove it first. And if you have the item, right, the screw wheel seems like a common part you can share with the other similar M9 series of mouse. So the ribbon cable is quite fragile, so be very delicate with it. So the scroll wheel, to unmount it, there's a shaft. After removing it, it looks like a shape of an F. There's no screws attached, you just need to remove it, and from the picture you can see, and it pops off easily. So this is a part we clean it later on. Some more screws under the scroll wheel. So these two are extremely small Phillips, so remove it, leave it inside the shaft and don't mix it. It's the best way to go. I think we're about there. After removing the top 2, then we're left with the charging port sister board. Yeah. Apologies on the camera angle. So for the sensor, right, it's not screwed down, it's just using a friction to clamp it down. You need to pry it a bit with a jimmy tool and release the sensor in all. With closer inspection of the board, this is quite densely populated. The main IC, there's copper coil, Next, the scroll wheel. Okay, so you can see the lever actuating the movement of the wheel, be it free spinning or clicks. So you can see the spokes in the middle of the scroll wheel. I guess the sensor will track the forward-backward movement of the wheel, so it translates to the mouse cursor on the screen. Using some IPA, I'll clean the sides of the scroll wheel. So usually some gum and dirt fiber will be trapped in between and inside of the cavity. So again, some brush to brush off the remaining dirt in between. So not much cleaning here, but as usual, since you're in here, we'll do the full thing. Removing this silicone, it's a friction adhered to back. Just need to pull it out and pay attention to this contact point. So it's quite deep in. For example, if it's not working, you know, viewers, if you have a faulty left or right click, that's not necessary to dump the whole mouse with some specialized tools. Not specialized, I guess it's so soldering iron, a good soldering tip. You'll be able to salvage this item as well. People might be wondering why I'm holding just charging board only, leaving the main board hanging on the two wires. In fact, the solders are quite hardy, so yeah, with some weight it's totally fine. What I have here is the new replacement top shell. So it comes with the zoom button, the side buttons, and yeah, it's really clean. It took me quite a while to find a replacement because it's an old mouse. I can think that it's easily 6 to 7 years old. So yeah, I'm quite relieved to find it making the whole mouse usable again. So the assembly will be the direct opposite way. Installing the charging board first. So it's a totally new case. So while installing this self-tapping screw, it takes a bit more effort, but one tip is try not to force it in, and once it's at the end of the screw travel, once it's secure, then you'll be okay. Otherwise you will be breaking the plastic below. Next will be installing the main board. So one good thing that I will do is I'll just roughly put it in, make sure the stands are in place, the wires are not kinked up. Then after the positionings are more or less confirmed, then securing the screws. Forget to point out there's these two tiny screws near the gold color contact part on the top of the mouse. The two tiny springs are used to provide some resistance for the scroll wheel. That item goes missing very easily because it's really small and silver in color. So it's a good practice. You do your dismantling assembly on a surface where you can see the small parts. Putting it in, making sure it's in place before we install the scroll wheel. After installing the scroll wheel, usually I will test the parts is related to, in this case, the left and right click. So it will be an improvement if they use tactile switches instead of this silicone one, because when you do a left and right scroll, right, most of the time you don't feel it until you see the screen move. The sensor of the mouse just snaps on, so yeah, it is quite straightforward. And the last few screws on the main board before we assemble the battery compartment. Okay, touching on the wire connectors, right, there's always the red and black positive or negative end. So we do have friends that are concerned, might we put the wrong end in? But usually manufacturers are quite kind. So for the connector, right, there's two different sides of it, and the female part of the connector, so basically there's only one way you can install it. So closing up the case, do take note that the clip goes in first, then you slide on the whole case. It takes a while, but yeah, it should go in without much difficulty. So my favorite part, removing the plastic, refilling the new case. So installing the 4 screws. For this top and bottom shell that I've purchased, it came with the mouse feet. So we have a totally new mouse feet. Another thing why I like about Logitech mouse is they have this unifying dongle. So if you see on this picture, there's this orange color tab with like a sun logo, right? One connector will be able to link 6 different devices, and the connection is can say instantaneous. So yeah, before applying the skates, I did some testing, making sure all the buttons are working, the left and right scroll, the zoom, the Windows button are working before applying the skates. Approaching the end of this tear down and refurb video. For viewers, if you like the video, do click on the like button, and for more of this content, do subscribe to my channel. Thank you. This is Restore Refurb Works. Coming up for my next video, right, I've procured this faulty Razer Lance head wired mouse. So I was told that it's faulty left buttons. Stay tuned.